This radio show is a paid placement. Welcome into Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes, but today it's with Macintosh. Because Mindy McIntosh, the founder and president of Macintosh & Associates, not with us. She might just join us, though, by the end of the show. But Nolan McIntosh is here. Certainly, Nolan, of course, can help you with all your market questions. And right now is a great time to have Nolan maybe just on the show himself for a while to talk about the market. And are we going into a recession? What's going on? Macintosh & Associates team is here to help you create that retirement plan. The Dream-Focused Wealth Plan is all about you and your situation, your hopes and dreams, and what you're going to do for retirement. You can always go to the website to find out more, wealthmichigan.com, wealthmichigan.com. It's 877-222-8849 if you have any questions or concerns. There's no cost to chat with the team. They're here to help. They just don't know if they can help you until they hear from you. 877-222-8849. How are you, Nolan? No Mindy for a while. Are you going to be all right?
Yeah, we're doing good. Still got softball and soccer and everything else going on, so it's great. Unfortunately, we, have Mindy's mom, my mother-in-law, stays with us during the week because she works here at the office, and so, I'm not at it alone, so it's good. She does help out a lot, so it's been good.
Yeah, so talk about what's going on right now. I mean, I think a lot of people get a little nervous, certainly. And we know that emotional responses to inflation, emotional responses to market volatility, emotional responses to all the things going on, not necessarily a great thing for our portfolios. What's going on right now?
Well, it's a lot of things, and it's not one of these. So I sometimes refer, back to 2020 and the snapshot in time, and a lot of people forget about it. And I think part of it is pandemic driven. Our eyes were somewhere else and things of that nature. But, if we go back to 2020, the market dropped record. It was a record drop, the fastest ever dropped in history of the stock market. The market closed 4 times, because it dropped, because they call it circuit breakers now. This is, so they try and avoid what happened back in the Great Depression era. But the interesting part is that it actually came back so quickly that I think a lot of people just didn't even mention it. So it was what we call a V-shaped recovery, right? It went down so quick and came back so quickly that it looked like a V. This one's a little different. I think that's why some people are a little more panicked. I mean, they've had time to think about it. They've had more time to watch the news. They have more time to see what's going on in the market. Now, granted, it has not dropped as fast as it did in 2020. It's not even down to those levels that it was in 2020. But it's been gradual. It's been one of these things that started in January, and now we are where we are. And obviously, certain indexes are down further than others, and so that creates some of the panic. And then we have, there's nothing on the news, and this is why they make them headlines, but there's nothing in the news that gives us a positive outlook, right? We're talking about inflation. We're talking about, the government's come out and said that they think the economy is still healthy enough to where we still need to raise interest rates. So people are concerned because things are costing more right now currently, and then obviously if you need to borrow money in the future here, pretty soon it's going to cost even more to borrow money. So it's one of these things that I think that when we're watching things and looking at it, number one, we don't have, not much anyways, talk of COVID. So our eyes are kind of facing on the news and things of that nature. We still have a Russia-Ukrainian war that's happening, but that's kind of gone by the wayside. I think I read something just the other day that one of the most watched things right now is this Sparrow, Jack Sparrow, I can't remember his name, and Amanda Heard. That's the most
the trial
things. The trial is the one of the most sought out things.
Depp.
Yeah, Johnny Depp. There you go. So it's interesting where our concentration level is right now. And so I think that's what's creating some of the panic, and rightfully so. I mean, it's one of these things, again, there is some trending that we're looking at that looks close to the 08-09 era, where it took a while for it to go down, and then it, what we call troughed out at the bottom, and then took, possibly 3 to 4 years on some portfolios for them to get back to the original principle. So I think that's part of where we're at. I think that's where some of the panic is coming in, is just because, number one, it's been longer than what we've seen in 2020, and there's not a lot of headlines that are positive at this point.
So 877-222-8849 if you'd like to chat with the team of Macintosh & Associates about where you are. You're maybe a little nervous, or maybe you're like, hey, I think I've already won the game, but I don't really know for sure. I mean, you can be in either place. And then you might be somebody that says, hey, I think I've got it all, but the challenge is you don't have a retirement plan. And that's really what Macintosh & Associates is all about, creating that dream-focused wealth plan so that you do have confidence and clarity. And then things happen and change during your lives, and the plan changes right along with you. 877-222-8849 if you'd like to learn more. 877-222-8849. 8849. I'm Mark Elliott. Nolan, one of the crazy things, and you guys were actually just born when inflation was going rampant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Late 70s, early 80s. That was the time period for it. I was in high school and then I was in college. Inflation was really high, but when you live in it, you just grow up in it and you're like, it's no big deal. Well, it's been since the 80s where we've had inflation, really. You haven't really noticed much. It's been 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, but it's not been very high, probably since the, dot-com bubble bursting, 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation has not been a factor. Now, all of a sudden, it's 8.5%, and boy, you can sure feel it at the gas pump and the grocery store. What about inflation? Because that's something that you and Mindy have always talked about. You have to have increasing income in your income part of your retirement plan.
Yeah, you have to, right? And let's not be reliant on market, right? I don't think market right now is inflation proof, right? If we're losing money, that's not inflationary proof, that's recessionary on your market accounts. So that's why we always want to have an income plan. We have to know, right? So a lot of times we reference the three-legged stool, and some listeners may have heard this before, but usually a three-legged stool that can help combat inflation is, obviously Social Security is steady income that's coming in, and obviously some people have had the cost of living adjustment that they got so excited about at 6% that they got last year, and they're talking about maybe increasing again next year for this as well, but the hard part is that more Medicare come out of that. So that's not necessarily inflationary proof because obviously more cost is coming out of the Social Security. The second is your nest egg, right? So banks, savings, something that you can get to readily accessible, not necessarily inflationary proof either, right? Because it's one of those things that obviously interest rates being so low at this point still, you're not going to get your money back on whatever's sitting in the bank. Yes, it's liquid to you, but it's still losing purchasing power. And then the third leg of that stool is what we used to be able to say, right, is a pension. Well, those are gone, right? So how do we create another stream or another leg of that stool to create steady income that can increase with inflation? That's why we talk about it on the show quite a bit, is we try and satisfy your steady income. What are your needs versus your wants? And so when we look at a visual of that, your needs should be steady stream of income, so your Social Security, your savings, and then how do we create a pension? And a lot of times we talk about those guarantees. We like to work with what's called fixed indexing annuities, where they can hedge inflation, they index to the market, but they don't have any loss on them. There's a guarantee there. So that's what's nice, is that even in inflation or even in recessionary types of talks, we don't have to worry about what the market's doing because you don't have any market risk there. So that's why we try and create that three-legged stool. And then your wants come from your market accounts, right? I want a new car. I want to go on vacation. I want to buy a house. You don't have to buy a house today. You don't have to go on vacation. You don't have to usually get a new car. So we can time those out a little differently. When the market's doing something positive, then maybe we start drawing from those accounts. We can always do an income assessment, and so that's why we always say call 877-222-8849, and we can simply, that's one of the strategies, is seeing what your income looks like to make it recessionary proof and inflationary proof.
You've talked about it before. One of the challenges when you're heading into retirement is if in, say, 3 to 5 years before you get into retirement and 3 to 5 years after you get into retirement, if the markets are super crazy going down, that can be a real challenge because it's sequence of returns and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So when you throw in the markets are really bumpy right now, and we've got still remnants of COVID and all that kind of stuff that's still kind of lingering and causing some issues. But then you throw inflation in on the top of that. There's a lot of things that can make people nervous. To me, it's a great reason to call you and Mindy and the team at McIntosh & Associates. Let's get a feel of what we can do. But if you try to retire in a down market and most of your money's sitting in the market, you have to make some changes, I would think.
Oh, 100%. And now is not the time. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of people really freeze, right? They bury their head in the sand. They say, I'm just not going to look at it. I'm not going to look at my 401k. I'm not, hopefully I can retire next year, right? Why do we want to hope? Why don't we get something in place, right? Let's look at a plan so that way you know what we're going to do. 2 to 3 years out. 4 or 5 years out. I don't care. 10 years out, right? Why not have a plan? Instead of hoping you can make it, why can't we make it happen, right? So that's why we call it the Dream Focused Wealth Plan, is because why make it a dream? The only thing between reality and a dream is action. So you have to have an action plan. You have to do something. You can't bury your head in the sand, particularly right now, because consistently we're talking to clients all the time, because right now is not the time to watch your market just dwindle your funds and look at those things. We need to set a steady stream of income, get that plan in place, get some protection in there, so that way we can look at some things. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to do, I'm worried, the market's down. But look at what we've gained, So we sometimes look at snapshots in time and say, oh, I've lost all this for year to date. Well, how much have you gained since 2009, right? So let's look at it from that picture. And so let's do what we need to do, make a reward for what you've been able to do for the last 10, 11, 12 years. And now let's create some of the profits that you've earned, right, and put that into an income plan. So that's where we want to look at some things and take the stress out. Instead of hoping, right, let's make a plan and get that done. So 877-222-8849. Going to make you feel a lot better when you don't have to worry about what the market's doing or what recession is or what inflation is when we get that income plan set.
877-222-8849, 877-222-8849. Nolan and I back right after this. This is Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes.
Get started today to develop your own dream-focused wealth plan with the team at McIntosh & Associates. Schedule a complimentary first visit today. Call 877-222-8849.
According to the U.S. debt clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's $2 billion a day, $15 billion a week. Right now, our debt is more than $30 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? The answer is increasing taxes. Now, think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now, when rates are historically low, or later, when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Mindy and Nolan McIntosh and the team at McIntosh & Associates know what to look for. Mindy and Nolan can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 877-222-8849 to set up a visit with Mindy and Nolan McIntosh and McIntosh & Associates. That's 877-222-8849. Firm offers insurance services and may not give tax advice. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
I don't need your rocking chair, your Geritol or your Medicare.
Little George Jones, kickoff parts 2 and 3 of Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes. I'm Mark Elliott. Nolan McIntosh is certainly here today. Mindy might be joining us for our final segment. 877-222-8849 if you'd like to talk with Mindy, Nolan, and the team at McIntosh & Associates about where you are on your road to retirement. Certainly an opportunity for you, and I think it's a great opportunity to actually try to figure out where you are as opposed to getting into retirement and going, I don't know if I'm in a good place. Why not do all this beforehand? Great time to sit down with a team. I think it was 7 to 10 years out from retirement. Gives them a lot of time to put your portfolio maybe in a little bit better organizational situation, maybe leading forward, so you're in a better position when you actually do retire. And you can always go to the website to find out more, wealthmichigan.com, wealthmichigan.com. Now, that was a little George Jones. I don't need your rocking chair or Medicare, but the problem is we do need the Medicare probably. But today's retirees, Nolan, back when my grandparents retired in the 70s, it was the rocking chair retirement, I think. They were just sit back, kick back, didn't really do a whole lot, wanted to go watch the grandkids and that kind of stuff, play high school sports or what have you. But today's baby boomers are goers, it seems like. We don't need a rocking chair anymore, even if we're retired. We're going. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, 100%. We talked, we with clients, it's funny, we kind of use the, you got your go-go, your slow-go, and your no-go years, right? So obviously there's probably been some advancements, obviously, in healthcare, right? And people, obviously, life expectancies are larger, right? People are living longer. My grandpa's 97. So it's one of those things that, at 97, he's still go-go. I mean, he would drive out to Arizona, his fifth wheel, all the way until he turned 90. It's only been the last 7 years that he has not gone out to Arizona. So we know that people are a lot more active these days, and so they aren't. They're not sitting in their rocking chairs. They're going out and doing things. And so with that being said, in your go-go years, if we're spending that money, we need to make sure that we have an income plan that's allowing us to do that. And then we also want to have some other funds to be able to have those fun times, right? So that way we don't have to run out of our go-go years.
And for my grandparents and for your great-grandparents, I suppose, because you're a lot younger than I am, but you think about this. They retired with that three-legged stool that you've talked about on the program, right? The pension, Social Security, and their savings. And, of course, back in the 70s, 80s, you get high interest rates at the bank, get 10, 12, 14% on a CD. So pretty easy to create some income. Today's retirees do not have that. I mean, there's still pensions out there. If you work for the government, you're a teacher, police, fire. I mean, people that deserve it, I think, no question about it. But most of us don't have a pension. So we're in the IRA 401k world. And Nolan, when you think about it, IRAs did not come to be until 1974. The 401k not till 1978. The Roth world and the IRA, 1997. Roth 401k, 1998. Those tools have not been around a lot, but that's where people are retiring today. So I don't think my grandparents needed McIntosh and Associates for a retirement plan. They were good with income. How do you see that area that's changed from financial advisor, retirement planner that you guys are?
Yeah, it's significantly. And even, you talked about, governmental agencies are still hitting on pensions, but I don't know how many now. I mean, like hospitals. We have Dow headquarters right, in the next town over that have frozen their pensions and things like that. So a lot of these people that think they're, I'm with the company, they're going to give me a pension, and that might not be true anymore. They're stopping pensions. And the reason for that is because even pensions are on strain. I mean, people are outliving what their expectancies are to be on a pension, and you have to remember pensions are invested. So therefore, with the market like we're seeing today, with the down and ups, and they have multiple people that are on a pension, it can create some issues for the company because the company's on the hook, right, for saying, hey, you've worked for me for all these years. Now I'm going to reward you with the pension. And so they want to get away from that. So even these big companies like Dow said, okay, we're just going to increase it's better for them to increase their match to the 401k than to say, hey, we're going to give you a pension. And so now the onus is on the employee, right? The employee is the one that's at risk. The employee is the one that's responsible for their retirement. And so that's why we have to carve out a portion of that 401k. And people are like, well, pensions are dead. How can I create a steady stream of income like I could have gotten from a pension? How can I do that? Well, now we have to use your 401ks, your 403bs, your 457s, whatever that may be. We have to use those to create a pension for you. And the great thing is that a lot of people think, oh, a pension was great. I can get it, and I can maybe leave a percentage to my spouse or my partner and, kind of live life that way. But in a pension, what you don't get, you have to remember, is a cost of living adjustment, right? What you usually get is what you get. And then usually if you're going to do what's called a joint to survivor, it is an annuity. By the way, people say pensions, are, so it's a lot of times we talk about annuities on this program, and there's lots of different ones that obviously have gotten a bad name out there, but a pension is an annuity. A pension is an annuity. So a lot of times the joint to survivor percentage is less than what the annuitant, the person that's receiving it, the employee, they get less. So what's nice about it is actually we have more opportunity with a 401k or a 403b or 450 to create an income plan that, number one, gives you increasing cost of living adjustments, hopefully, through an indexing annuity tool. And then number two is that if something happens to the person that's collecting, the person that steps in, the partner to the spouse, they don't take a decrease in payment. They actually get the same payment that person was receiving at the same time and continue that for their own lifetime. So we actually have more opportunity, in our opinion, here at McIntosh and Associates, to be able to create a better pension than what you could have gotten even from your company. So even though they don't hand them out anymore, we think it's actually an opportunity. So if you want to see what that looks like, 877-222-8849. Love to be able to show you how we can fit that into your portfolio.
And I would think that would certainly give people a lot more confidence in knowing that they have that, Social Security plus another one or two guaranteed incomes coming in, certainly to ease some of the stress about, because it's still the number one concern that retirees have is the fear of outliving their money. Yeah. Now, maybe since you were bringing up all that you talked about, touch on the fact that a 401k, typically companies will allow you to roll it into your own IRA, which gives you way more opportunities to maybe put it in a better position. But there's ages revolving around that. Can you touch on the distribution of a 401k before you're actually retiring, and you still can take advantage of matching, but you're taking some control of your 401k?
Oh, yeah, 100%. A lot of people don't understand, and this is why, for Mindy and I, this is what we do every day, so it's common knowledge to us, but it's not necessarily common knowledge to some of our listeners out there. But there's a certain age requirement. Now, it's different for probably 5 or 10% of them. Some companies actually allow us to do this a little bit sooner, but on average, we'd say most of the time what happens is that the secret sauce age is 59 and a half. So you've been putting into your 401k, and most people more than likely have not changed their fund choices, things of that nature out of that. But It's one of those things that we can do what's called an in-service distribution. So once you hit 59.5, this is what the government, they say this is a full retirement age at 59.5. If you want to retire, you can touch your money without penalty, basically, is what they're saying. And so that's also an opportunity for us to do what's called an in-service distribution. So let's say, because most people, for whatever reason, they like to, and whether it's because they don't have a plan or they just, know that Medicare age starts at 65, or at least Social Security, so that's kind of another timeline that people look at. So whether you say, hey, I'm going to retire at the age of 62, or hey, I want to wait because I know my employer-sponsored plan would make some changes when I hit 65, so I can go on Medicare. So those are kind of some of the ages that we look at. But what if we started that plan to give you a pension if you didn't have one out of your retirement accounts by using what's called an in-service distribution at the age of 59.5? So what that allows us to do is we roll that out of the 401k and put it into an IRA. Now, some people say, well, there's going to be taxes to pay on that because I'm rolling it out of there and taking a distribution. And that's not how it works. A distribution can be done payable to somebody, or it can actually be in a form of a rollover. So when we do an in-service distribution, whatever stays pre-tax, and we just roll it over into another pre-taxed entity. Does not cost any taxation from that, and it makes it very simple to get a plan rolling right away. And we've been, obviously, with the market volatility we've seen lately, for our clients, we've been, and a lot of our prospects, we've been doing that a lot lately because they're just nervous about the market and they're getting ready to retire. So at that 59.5 age, why not get some type of plan in your hands if we can do it and do some type of in-service distribution? So 877-222-8849 or wealthmichigan.com. There's some information on there as well that can talk about how we can do an in-service distribution and get that plan going.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, to take a little bit more control of your 401k, and maybe you do it at the age of 60 and you retire at 66, for example. Mm-hmm. That still gives you 6 years of matching, taking advantage of the company match. You're not just getting out of your 401k, mm-hmm. You're just taking control of it, which I think is fantastic. And Nolan and the team at McIntosh & Associates certainly can help you with that. 877-222-8849. We only have a couple minutes left in this segment, but I think because we're in this area, you think about the 401k IRAs. Those have not been taxed yet until you start pulling them out. The Roth, obviously, we paid taxes and then moved it into the Roth IRA 401k. But traditional, we have not. Is that something that people overlook a little bit too, is that taxes could be a big issue for them because they do have high IRA or 401k accounts that have never been taxed?
Yeah. So what we talk about is it's not what you have, it's what you get to keep. And so unfortunately, if we've been putting money into pre-tax all of our lives, and now we have $500,000, let's say, in a 401k, it's not all yours, and we know the tax environment's going to change drastically with everything that we've had to do with stimulus packages and being, in a low tax bracket lately for the last, since 2018. And so the tax environment's going to change, and so that we have to make sure we account for taxation of taking out of those pre-tax entities, because let's say you fall in the 22% tax bracket, right? If you're in the 22% tax bracket, and in Michigan you have a 4.25 state income tax on that as well, well, do the math. 22 plus 4.25, you now have over a quarter of the money that you draw out of that pre-tax entity that is gone before you even touch it. It's a lot of things, moving parts that we, again, Mindy and I, it's common knowledge to us. We love working in that system. We like doing it. But for people out there listening, a lot of times it's not. And so why not have somebody help look at that? And again, we're not just looking at growing assets. We look at the whole picture. Do we need income? What's our tax bubble look like? What do market accounts look like? So that's why we want to look at everything to make sure we're servicing our clients as best as we can holistically. And so the best number, obviously, is 877-222-8849 to be able to look at that, or wealthmichigan.com to get some resources there.
877-222-8849. Back again with Nolan McIntosh. This is Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes.
If you're close to retirement, you probably hear about Medicare all the time. When to sign up, how to sign up, what your options are. But have you heard how you might be able to lower your future Medicare costs with proper planning before you retire? It's true. The McIntosh & Associates team can show you how. It's not for everyone, but you could potentially save in future Medicare premiums. See if this strategy could work for you. Call McIntosh & Associates now to set up your visit to start working on your plan. 877-222-8849. That's 877-222-8849. If you want to pay the lowest price for your future Medicare coverage, start planning today. Set up your visit now with the McIntosh and Associates team. Call 877-222-8849. Firm offers insurance services and is not affiliated with the U.S. government. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Schedule your complimentary first visit with the Macintoshes right now. Call 877-222-8849. That's 877-222-8849.
Welcome back to Wealth Michigan with the Macintoshes, except right now it's a singular Macintosh. Nolan McIntosh is here with us. We're talking about retirement today versus, your grandparents' retirement. I'm 62. Everybody that's turning 62 this year, by the way, was born in 1960, which means their Social Security full retirement age is 67. And we have talked about taking Social Security at 62 versus 70. And the idea is you can't look at Social Security in a vacuum, right? You've got to look at it with everything else you have, because it might make perfect sense for you to take it at 62, might make perfect sense for you to wait till 70, and for everybody else, it might make perfect sense to take it anywhere between those ages, right? It's not a Social Security question. It's how does it fit in with everything else? You're married versus single. There's just so many moving parts. And that's really part of the Dream Focused Wealth Plan. Social Security. What about my investments? Am I taking too much risk? Not enough risk? Do I have enough money protected for my retirement to make sure that my money will last as long as I do? Well, that's right in the Dream Focused Wealth Plan wheelhouse of McIntosh and Associates, creating the plan with you. Nolan and Mindy would be your chief financial officers. But at the end of the day, it's my retirement, it's your retirement. So we have final say, but I'm not the strongest when it comes to financial decisions. I need some guidance. And I would think a lot of people out there, when you kind of go into retirement, you hope things are going to be okay, but you don't really know, then that's a great time to talk with the team at McIntosh and Associates. It's 877-222-8849. There's no cost, there's no obligation, there's no pressure, there's no judgment. 877-222-8849. And you can always go to the website to find out more, wealthmichigan.com. Of course, McIntosh and Associates located in Freeland, serving the Tri-City area. So they're here to help. You need some help, give them a call. If you're not really sure where you are, give them a call. 877-222-8849. Now, we're talking about the challenges of retirees today. And so there are a lot of issues. We were talking about, my grandparents who retired in the 70s. There was high inflation, but that was okay. They'd already paid their house off, so it didn't matter. Then they retired like a decade later. But they had pensions. They had Social Security. They had high interest rates at the bank. Just put money in a CD. Income was not a factor. Well, for us, we have rising interest right now, but they're not enough that I can go put money in the bank and make money, because I'm losing money safely because I can't keep up with inflation. What do you see as some of the major risks today that not everybody sees?
Well, the major risks are, and we talked about it, is outliving your money, right? With inflation happening, there's whispers, right, of recession. So obviously, if there's a recession, that means there might be some companies going to business. Might be, some things from a standpoint of obviously things are costing more if we're on a fixed income. And obviously, you got market risk, right? We have market volatility there. And we also have taxes that are an issue. And then we also have healthcare costs rising. So there is a lot of things that are going to pull and strain a portfolio. So that's why we always do portfolio stress tests and making sure that no matter what, we're trying to solve for the what ifs, the unknowns, trying to solve for what if there's a medication you have to go on that you didn't have in your financial plan. If we can create or carve out something to help be able to afford some things of those what ifs, that's a big, big, big thing. That's a big win for people. And so I think sometimes we get into this whole strategy of talking to our neighbor and they return this and they return that, and we don't know their situation. Their situation might be that they're able to assume more risk. Their situation might be that they're not, maybe just living on Social Security. Maybe they have other rental properties or some other passive income that's coming in. So we don't want to always necessarily compare ourselves to our neighbor. And we don't always have to say, I want a 20, 30% return. Those are things that we should look forward to in our 20s and 30s, right? We should have growth-based types of objectives when we're younger. As we get older and we're getting closer to that semi-retired or retired age, we've had our big wins, hopefully, and therefore, from that standpoint, now how do we create longevity? How do we create an income plan? How do we create things that are going to help hedge inflation? How are we going to create something that can help not worry about recession. So that's why it's so important that we don't look at necessarily our lens, and this is why this is our niche market. Not that we can't work with some 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds, but for Mindy and I, our niche market is looking at fitting the puzzle pieces together for somebody that has done a good job. They have now gotten to the point where they want to be work optional. And now how do we create something that's not looking at big wins and getting 20, 30% returns, but how do we create a lifestyle now that doesn't go down and create an income stream that you can go to bed at night not having to worry about what the news is talking about the market returns or inflation or, interest rates. So that's why it's so important that we start de-risking possibly the portfolio and looking at some things to make you sleep a little bit better at night and not worry about all the stuff that we're hearing about on the news. So 877-222-8849. Let's de-risk that portfolio.
And the team at McIntosh & Associates can certainly help you in the market. They can help you in the investment world, but they can also help you in the insurance world. And a lot of times, especially when the markets get volatile, people pull out and go into cash. Sometimes that's the right decision. Sometimes it may not be because Warren Buffett doesn't time the market. He just has so much money and so many things in the market. He can shuffle things all over the place and do the right things for him. But most of us are not in that situation. So when I listen to you, I get the feeling that it's like, ooh, I better start pulling money out of the market because it's such a questionable time right now. I'm going to retire. But even when you're in retirement, you still need some growth, right?
Yeah, 100%. So it's not the time. So
we're not pulling 100% out of the market. No. We might be just protecting, I'm 62, so the old rule of 100 would be basically 60% of my money should be safe and 40% can be growing, I guess.
You got it. And it shouldn't be, like you said, putting in cash. Because we're still losing by inflationary measures right now if we put it in cash. And so, kind of what you said, go ahead, shove it in the bank, but it's not going to grow, So I guess you know what it's worth, right? That's what some people will come in and say, well, at least I know if I have 100,000 in the bank, I know it's 100,000 in there. I said, yep, 100%, but go out and buy something with that, see how far it gets you. That's what we need to look at. So with inflation being at 8%, if we put it into cash and pull out of the market, you're losing 8% right now without any potential for growth. So why not at least put it into something that we can get some growth? And so that's why holistically we want to look at it. We try and put some portions into something that can't lose and a portion into something that keeps it, liquid. So that's why a lot of people don't realize is that there's trade-offs, right? There are. And so obviously if we have a company that's giving you a guarantee that says, hey, you can't lose anything on there, then, there are some things that they have to do with your money. And so that's why they create the safety there. And then on the other side, you create some liquidity and some growth. You should get better growth in the market overall, year over year on returns, but it keeps it liquid because you're the one assuming the risk there. So that's why we want to have a couple buckets to be able to draw some income from, to help hedge inflation, to help obviously hedge interest rates and things of that nature that are going on.
So Nolan, is the perfect scenario when I'm retired and the markets get really bumpy, that then maybe I don't pull money out of the market. I just kind of let it go, but I quit pulling money out for my retirement and I go to another bucket and let the market take its time to get back and not worry about that bucket over there for a while because I have another bucket that I can use. That's right. We want buckets. We want several different buckets to be able to pull money from. And we've been talking quite a bit lately about, because unfortunately a lot of people out there think bonds are safe. Current interest rate environment we're in, bonds are not safe. They're usually safer than market funds, things of that nature, or what we call equities or stocks. But in current interest rate environment, we're going to continue to see bonds devalue. We're going to continue to see bonds have an issue. So we've been using bond alternatives to help decrease overall risk in clients' portfolios, but still have some market accounts to help hedge and get some growth there eventually there. But right, we want several different buckets. So maybe when the market's down, we're not drawing from the market bucket, but maybe we're drawing from some of the other buckets that have steady streams of income that, it doesn't matter if the market goes down or up because you can't lose on that. So we want to be able to do that. And so that's why we want several different buckets to be able to make sure that we can control a little bit more of our financial destiny by having those different buckets instead of saying, well, I hope the market comes back tomorrow. Well, I hope the market comes back sometime. Oh, if I go more conservative, then I know I still probably could lose some money because bonds aren't going to do what they're supposed to, but I don't want to increase risk because I know stocks are quite volatile. So why not give some more control back and say, okay, at this point in time, this is where we're drawn from, the stuff that's not in the market. And again, not necessarily putting it into savings accounts, putting it into something that can have some growth, some potential for growth there, without having any risk there. So 877-222-8849.
get several buckets within your portfolio, so that way we don't have to worry about what's going on in the market.
So when you call the team at McIntosh & Associates, 877-222-8849, it's creating the Dream Focused Wealth Plan with you is what it is. You're a team. They're on the same side of the table as you. They're not getting money from the brokerage house if they're in the market. They're not getting money from the insurance company. It's about you, really. So it doesn't matter. It's what tools do you need to make your retirement better. So the discovery meeting is where it starts, and that's really to find out about your hopes and your dreams and your bucket list. What do you want to do in retirement? And then you say, okay, well, where's our income going to come from? Do we have enough guaranteed income to cover our necessities? Do I need to make another bucket to create a little bit more income? Where are you in that income world? And then your investment strategies. Are you taking too much risk, not enough risk, the right amount of risk? Tax efficient strategies. We know when we get 2026 that the tax law that went into play in 2018 ends and we go back to 2017 rates and brackets. And that's if the Biden administration does nothing. We know they've been talking about taxes. So you need a tax-efficient strategy, especially in the 401k IRA retirement world where no dollars have been taxed till you start pulling them out. You've got to have a strategy there. Health and long-term care, legacy and estate planning. The team at McIntosh & Associates here to help you. But you've got to pick up the phone. They'd love to help. They just don't know if they can until you reach out. It's 877-222-8849, 877-222-8849. Nolan and I will be back. Will Mindy join us? That is to be determined. Stay with us. This is Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes. Back for our final segment right after this.
To learn more about the team at McIntosh & Associates, check out their website anytime at wealthmichigan.com.
Glad you're with us today for Wealth Michigan with the McIntoshes. Mindy McIntosh, the founder and president of McIntosh & Associates, started the company back in 2004. Nolan McIntosh, he's here to help you with all of your market investments. Are you taking too much risk, not enough risk, the right amount of risk? And then Mindy and Nolan kind of team up to help you in the tax world. Mindy can certainly help you in the life insurance, the Medicare world. There's just a lot of moving parts. We really need to have a plan at the end of the day. Really what we want to know is if we retire, we're going to be okay. Give the team a call, 877-222-8849. There's no cost, 877-222-8849. You can always find out more on the website, wealthmichigan.com. All right, Mindy, last time we did this, you did a part one on our fiscal financial house, and today you're wrapping it up with part two, I believe.
You bet. So this is Fiscal House Part 2, and we're really looking at building strategies. So right now, just like an experienced builder, you know, that homes have been selling quicker than they can almost go up or being put for sale on the market, they have a disposal and the knowledge of necessary tools to build their strong, weather-resistant home. So we're really looking at asset allocation. So we need to work towards your unique needs and make sure that we don't, put all of your eggs in one basket. And we want to make sure that we're using various financial vehicles for some diversification to help hedge for you. And within that diversification, we want to make sure that we're helping you against many of the risks of maybe a poorly performing vehicle. And it's a good idea to select a variety of options within the category to make sure that as things change, as one thing goes up, another thing can move sideways. And how do we make sure that that works well together? And cost management. Now more than ever, you need to be focused on diversification, yes, of financial vehicles, but you cannot ignore how much these wide variety of diversification can cost you. So I think it's so important that when you're building a budget with this house, we have to cut back in some areas, make sure where can we decrease some expenses in appliances or landscaping. And when it comes to financial assets and management and holding fees, let's make sure they're not being feed to death. And let's have a chance to meet together with your goals and anticipated time frame to make sure that most of your funds are working well for you. Risk management too. As you age, we work with a lot of people that are nearing retirement. We do not want you to have the same degree of risk you did in your 40s when you're in your 60s. So let's take a look at risk of market loss and inflation. So let's protect those walls, floor, and ceiling with these elements. And remodeling, Mark, we can't forget about that. That just means we got to make sure that we're doing updates, convenient layouts, watching your efficiency, and making sure that as your goals change, your asset allocations change as well. and keep it sustainable. So sustainability means keeping your fiscal house in a nice long-term goals to make sure that your retirement assets last longer than you. So call us at 877-222-8849 and let's help you build your fiscal house.
Nolan, we've got 1 minute left. And one of the challenges right now is the bond world. With interest rates starting to rise by the Fed, bonds go the opposite way of interest rates. So interest rates go up, bond values go down. This is kind of where you have bond alternatives to kind of help our financial house, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so that's why we even go to our website. We have a little place that you can get on your calendar. I can do a 15-minute review on where your portfolio is on the bonds and see if there's an alternative that we can help you with, because if bonds aren't going to be doing what they're supposed to do, then why don't we put it in something that has some safety with at least hedging inflation to where we can maybe go more equity side on the market accounts, but maybe have more safety on the non-bond term alternatives that we talked about. And there's a nice little review that we can do, a bond review on our website that you can click and schedule yourself in. I'd love to do that. So wealthmichigan.com is where you can get that information, and I'd love to be able to talk with you on the phone about that.
Yeah, that's a great one. Wealthmichigan.com. You want to learn more about the bond world, because that was the old way of doing it. We'd go 60% stocks, 40% bonds. We'd get older, we'd flip it. Well, the bond world is not great right now. There are bond alternatives. The team at McIntosh and Associates here to walk you through some of your options that you may not even know about. And you can always give them a call, obviously, 877-222-8849, 877-222-8849.
McIntosh and Associates Incorporated is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM. AEWM and McIntosh and Associates Incorporated are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. McIntosh and Associates Incorporated is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by McIntosh and Associates Incorporated.